Hey everyone, this is Coffee Chug. This is another video tutorial to help you learn to create your robotic snapping jaw pumpkin. I just wanted to say thank you for those that have been watching and listening and checking out the other projects. And if you have other things that you're interested in, make sure you let me know. This video is just kind of segmented, so if you have questions on things that I don't cover or other specifics, just leave a comment, reach out to me. I'd be more than willing to help out in any way that I can. And with that, enjoy making a pretty cool pumpkin. The snapping jaw pumpkin idea came from the Evil Mad Scientist website, but has been tweaked and modified a bit to work on a Sparkfun Redboard, as well as some other things that I've added to it just to make it work for me. So let's check it out. Make your own pumpkin, and as I'll say many times throughout this video, make sure you share what you've created because I'd love to see all the creative, imaginative ideas that people are coming up with. All right, let's get
Here,
going.
and we are going to make a robotic jack-o'-lantern using a small little pumpkin. This idea is not mine. It comes from the Evil Mad Scientist website, but I want to go ahead and show you the video of how to make this for my students and also for anyone else interested in what we're doing with our Young Engineers of Today program. So the first thing we're going to do is take a marker. You can use any marker you want, obviously a Sharpie or something permanent. You can always take off later with rubbing alcohol or nail polish remover. But what I'm going to do first is we got to mark some teeth on here. And what I like to do, if this is going to be my center focal point, I will mark the same thing on the other side, and I'll explain here in just a little bit. And so if this is going to be my teeth, I'm going to draw some teeth here. All right. I'm going to do, I think, just 5 teeth. So 2 on that side. And then I'm going to do 2 over here. Now the rest of this, I'm just going to keep it simple. You can see I have my center mark because over here is where our hinge is going to be for a robot, or not for a robot, but for a robotic pumpkin for the jaws to open and close. And so from here, I'm just going to draw this straight line all the way across. I know it's not going to look perfect at this point in time. Okay, so I know right here, you can see my mark. All right. I'm going to want just about a 1 to 2 inch line that's going to be a little bit lower than the rest. So I'm going to drop that down just like so. All right, then I'll go ahead and connect here. Once we have that, we're then going to go ahead and cut out the pumpkin by cutting it in half. All right, something that's optional that you could do, when we go to put the eyes on, they're going to be up top right here. And so you can have the wires actually hang over the top and we can staple them that way. Or if you want, I've seen people that have gone through and drawn the eyes and carved these out right here. And then the LED lights fit right in that mold, and then the wiring can come through on the back. That's up to you. Either way is fine. If you're looking for something simple, you can just keep the wires on top of the head. But if you want to carve out holes and run them inside the pumpkin, you can do that as well. So I finished carving here. So what you got to do, you got to go ahead and scoop out this stuff here. Oh, it's not too hard to do. Let's get a little spoon or whatever you got. Carve out the guts just like you do on a regular pumpkin. A little pumpkin is not as difficult. Let's get the main cruds out of there. Right. And the key here is that you have a hinge in the back that we're going to use so the pumpkin jaw can open and close. It'll go off that hinge right here. So you may have to clean that up a little bit in the back. That's up for you. So there you have it. What we're going to do is take 2 toothpicks here. You push those in right in the corners of the bottom edge of your pumpkin. Just like so. So when your pumpkin is sitting on there, it doesn't fall all the way back. It kind of creates a hinge. And you can kind of cut a little bevel on here if you want this a little bit more smooth. This depends on how nice you want it to look, but it's up to you. And so then you can just trim and cut these off so you just have about a 1/4 inch sticking above each one. So I'll go ahead and cut these, and then we'll go ahead into the next step here to make this work. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and get the LED lights going. I need to find my lights here. I'm gonna go white. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and get our LED lights wired and ready to go. And so I've got 2 kind of gumdrop LED lights. I'm gonna go white, doesn't matter what color you use. I've got my wire already cut. The length doesn't matter, just depends on where you want to put your microcontroller. So I've got 2 yellow, 2 blue, 2 wires for each eye. Obviously you need to wire cut those and trim those out so you can solder. And then you need 2 1K resistors. So I'm going to go ahead and solder the resistor to each end of this yellow here. So I'll go ahead and then on this side. All right, so what I like to do, once you have your supplies, is you're going to solder 1 resistor to the end of 1 wire. I use the yellow and the positive, and then I just twist my cables to my LED light when I go to solder. It's just easier to keep it held together. And so I'll do the same exact thing for this one here. And then I'll solder this, make sure it's nice and secure. And then we'll be ready to go ahead and add the servo motor inside the pumpkin, get the lights going, and then we can program with our microcontroller. So I'm gonna get these here going. Get my 1K resistor on the end of this wire. And we'll be in action. So I'm gonna go ahead and solder this. You go ahead and solder yours. And then we'll start programming and the coding. All right? All right. All right, so for this next step here, what I want to do is just kind of explain the basic setup before I get in and explain just some of the basic code that I use, which wasn't anything major. It just really came from the examples that come from Arduino. So let's take a look at what I've got here for this pumpkin. All right, so if I go ahead and open this up, Actually, I'll pry this apart here. What I've done to hold this in when I originally was making this pumpkin work was my pumpkin would either open up on the side, or it would open up kind of sideways and not really the open and close like you see in the video. So we just took some garden wire, and you can see right here what I've done is added just extra support. So I've pushed that in on the side of the pumpkin, and then that connects here on the top of this, and it locks in the back end. So when it pivots on that back edge, it doesn't actually fall. The other thing is I've got a servo motor right in here. And what I've done is I've just taken my glue gun, and I've super glued a popsicle stick, cut it in half, got it to the right size and dimension, so that when it comes up, it's actually strong enough to lift the pumpkin head. Some early revisions, I tried to use some different things and it didn't work. But when I lock the back end, when the braces on the toothpicks here, and it gives some more security here, we're in good shape. I also use that same garden wire. I don't know if you can see here in the servo. There's little holes on each side of the servo that you can use for screwing the motor down on different devices. I use that same garden wire and looped it, and I actually have it sitting down here and twisted so that the motor stays in one place. Now on the top end with my LED lights, I did go through and carve holes in the pumpkin as you saw in the previous video. So I carved those out, and I've got everything kind of wired in now, but I pushed those wires through the hole, and then the LEDs just sit right there on top of the pumpkin. If you didn't do it that way, you would simply just have the wires go on top of the pumpkin, and you could just actually staple the wires to hold them in. This is just what I do to kind of hide it. And then I beveled the back end of this pumpkin here so the wires can kind of hang down, and it kind of gives the pumpkin like a raggedy mullet, multicolored ponytail. One thing that's going to be very important is getting some wire tape or something to wrap around the wires, because they are live wires depending on how much you stripped off, and if they touch, they ground out and the LED lights don't work. And so I've just taken one of the wires, in this case I used the blue, and I put some tape around that exposed wire so they would not short out on that. And that's basically it in terms of the setup for the pumpkin. Once you have it carved, so when I go to put this back in here, I've got my servo motor in here with the garden wire. You can see it's punched through. I've twisted it, and then it just lays it flat so this motor doesn't move. You got my popsicle stick right here, just super glued to the servo motor. And then I've added this garden wire right here, just to give added support. So when I go to place this in here, like so, I'll just push that wire. Let's fix this one piece here. Right into the pumpkin, just for added security. I needed that. Depending on how you do your cut, you may or may not, but in my case, it was needed. And that just locks it in. And then you can see the multicolored mullet ponytail here of the pumpkin. So when I turn it on, it opens, but it keeps it kind of secured in that back end. I don't know if you can see there, but it keeps it from going up and down as opposed to just going off to the side like mine originally was. So once you've got that figured out, then it's time to go ahead and get it wired. And I'll explain this here on the board, but then I'll put some schematics up using the 123D website so you can see. But I have my 5-volt and my ground here on my Sparkfun. You can do Arduino, what doesn't matter, it's all the same, whatever microcontroller you use. I am using the breadboard, so I've plugged that over here to the breadboard. I have then my other connection right here, my blue wire. This is for the for the servo motor. Just giving that some more power here, this blue wire. For now, because I just want my LED lights on, and I'm not really going to program much with those. I can change it, and if I do, I'll add new updates to it. I just got them plugged in right here on this strip, so they're just going to stay on. And then I've got a jumper that jumps over for my servo motor down here. I'm just using pins 5, 6, and 7 to control the servo. So when I go to program, I can actually adjust how much I want the motor to open and close. 100 right now, the standard, if you were to use the Arduino example of the servo, it open and closes 180 degrees nonstop, and that's way too much. So that's my basic layout on this. And so I will pull up here a screenshot of the actual coding using the 123D circuits. And you can take a look at that, and then I'll go ahead and screenshot the code of what I modified to make this work. All right, so you can see the pumpkin's now working. I've got my board connected here to my computer. You can see that now the bite's a little more ferocious, and so I want to show you how I programmed it. It's really, really simple and not hard to do at all. Actually, you don't have to have any coding experience. You can just use the provided code from Arduino. So what I'm going to do is then switch over here to my computer screen share so you can kind of see what I'm doing here.
So let's go ahead and take a look now at the programming and how we actually get this pumpkin to do something now that we've carved it and put in the servo motor and the LED lights. And so what I have using the 123D circuits, and I'll include a screenshot of this on the blog post right up, and I'll put links on the YouTube channel for this as well, is I've recreated the pumpkin circuit here. And so right here, this would be the pumpkin. This would be the servo motor inside the pumpkin. These would be the two LED lights for the eyes. And you can see that what I've done is, for now, I've just wired the lights directly here on these vertical components. So they're just going to stay on. There's no programming to these at this point. What I would like to do is eventually move these over and do some programming with detection of when it gets dark out and things like that. But for now, they're just going to stay on permanently. I've got my 5-volt and ground over here to the breadboard, and then I've got my other pin here in this port. This is going to allow the servo motor to work, and you can see my wires here, here, and here, and just how I have it currently wired. And so you can just follow the same schematic if you've never done this before. Once you have that all ready to go, and you've got your Arduino plugged into your computer, we need to go ahead and program. And what I've done here is I made my own copy, but to let you know where I started from, right here is your Arduino software. And I just opened up one of the examples that comes with it, the servo sweep. And this will give you everything that you need if you've never programmed or coded before. You can write your own code, obviously, but this will help you for those that need some guidance. And what I've done is, for my pumpkin, and your pumpkin may be a little different, I have adjusted these points here to 90. And the delay, I've actually made this one smaller since the video. It makes the pumpkin kind of, the bite's a little bit more ferocious, I guess, if you will. This makes it look more aggressive. And you can play around with that all you want. And that's what you load up to the pumpkin, and you'll be ready to go. So once again, that was an open, and I'm just using the example of the servo sweep and modifying it. I'm going to be writing some new code where I can turn the lights on and off like it's winking at you, and doing some other things which I'll follow up with. But more importantly, I would love to hear from you. What would you do differently? What other codes have you done? What does your pumpkin look like? How have you created something different? I've shared a little bit of what I've done based on what I've learned from the Evil Mad Scientist and my tweaks and mods. I would love to learn from you, because that's what it's all about. Sharing, not because we're experts, but sharing because that's what we do in order to help each other learn and grow. So send me your pictures, send me your code, send me things that you are thinking about, and I would love to interact with you and build something different besides this pumpkin. Thanks so much for listening. I would appreciate it if you found this helpful for a thumbs up, and I look forward to your comments and questions on the blog, online, at Coffee Chug Books on Twitter, or here on the YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody.